I'm Mary Perk, the Executive Director for AIW, the center that's sponsoring this second annual event. Thank you for all your participation yesterday. One thing I wanted to recognize is that we actually have many people that have traveled from outside of the United States. So if you have traveled outside the United States, can you raise your hand? I know we have people from Hong Kong, Korea, Switzerland, Hamburg, Cologne, Spain, España, Brazil. So, am I missing anyone else?
Florida come?
Florida. It's not a different country yet. No. But anyway, I'm so impressed for all of you that have traveled so far, and I am hoping that we've delivered the content that you were expecting. And feel free to talk to Stefano, Lynn, Kartik, or myself for ideas or other things that you'd like to hear. So this morning, I'm really excited for our keynote speaker. We have Shiv Trisal from Databricks here, and he's actually an alumnus of Wharton, an MBA alumnus of 2021. But a little background around Shiv, he is responsible for worldwide adoption of Databricks in the manufacturing, transportation, and energy sectors, and responsible for developing industry solutions and partnerships. Shiv has a proven track record leading diverse teams and delivering game-changing data and AI innovation across what you would call the MTE, which is manufacturing, transportation, and engineering, or energy industries. And prior, he had roles at E&Y and Raytheon. His bachelor's degree was in EE Electronics Engineering from Tapper Institute of Engineering and Technology in Punjab, India. And we are very excited that he's going to talk to us a lot about the data that's necessary for these models. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Shiv.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary, and thank you to the faculty here at Wharton. Just a quick note, yes, I was a student at the Wharton School. I actually never went to this particular classroom because I was in Philly, not in San Francisco. But I can tell you the views here are much better than they are in Philadelphia. So as Mary introduced me, very passionate about AI. So I come at AI. My career in AI was driven more by application, not so much by deep research. So I was the kind of guy who was tapped on the shoulder in industry. I come from aviation, prior to Databricks, and said, hey, we see this AI thing taking off. We see a bunch of planes making a lot of data. How do we actually use this to optimize the airspace? And that kind of that idea led me into this domain. And it's never been something that I never regret taking that risk in this particular area of technology, because the intersection of the value creation that you can do with this technology is just limitless right now. So what I'm going to talk about largely is how you bridge the AI value gap. Everybody has, I think, since the advent of ChatGPT even more so, but even before that, I think that everybody believes in the promise of AI, but very few people in corporate America or the world at large in industry actually have realized this value. And as Databricks and the work that I'm doing, even prior to that, I just have a very cool job at Databricks. I get to work with a lot of customers and have a unique vantage point into what they are actually doing versus what they are saying. So what I'm going to share with you is some excerpts from an unreleased report called The State of Data and AI in the World, which basically will tell you a lot of interesting insights across industries in terms of what's actually happening in terms of AI applications. So love to share that with you. So I think the core message I would start this with is almost every industry you look at, it's very, very clear the winners in every industry will reshape their businesses and be winners because they are essentially data and AI companies. Obviously with Amazon, they were an e-commerce company, but there is no such thing as a retail company anymore. You are a retailer and an e-commerce company because of what Amazon did with their recommendation engines. We saw the same thing in the entertainment industry with Netflix. We saw the same thing with automotive and Tesla, what they've been able to do, completely upended what it looks like. It is so funny because this is a sector that I work with very, very closely. The best-selling car in California, if you ever told me was going to be a Model 3 over a RAV4, I would have said 5 years back, you're crazy, right? And even in Europe, if you told me the best-selling car would be a Tesla Model 3, I would have been like, this is insane. That's never going to happen. But that's the case today, right? It's the best-selling model in terms of new car purchases across the world, which is insane to think about, given how competitive the automotive industry is. And it's all because of what they were able to do with self-driving features, what they're able to do in terms of the driving experience, what they're able to do with data and AI to improve the experience of driving, the experience of ownership, the security and safety of people who are riding those vehicles. And I think that's insanely, the job is not done, that's insanely impressive. And the trajectory they're on has set the course for an entire industry. So that's what I mean when I say the winners in every industry are really going to be data and AI companies. So what does that mean, right? What does that really mean? In simple terms, every organization wants to deliver amazing innovation to their customers. They want to execute on product innovation faster. What does it mean to be a data-driven company? You have to empower the workforce of the future because people are going to be using these tools inside of their daily lives to improve not just their experience at work, but the tasks that they're doing, the quality of those tasks has to improve as well. And then gaining real-time insight into operations, right? That's what the future would look like is data powers every aspect of the business. And that's really, really exciting. And I'm a former engineer, so when people throw big technology terms at me, I like to simplify them down to like really easy solvable equations, which then I can go take forward. I know it's a little simplistic, but it's good because you tend to think about, as a strategist, what do I need to do in this future where I see tons of value creation to be had in AI. So there's two significant shifts you have to recognize, right? So one, in generative AI, user expectations have just been elevated forever, right? So ChatGPT kind of changed everything, in the sense that people just expect responses faster in their workflows, and that genie is not going back in the bottle anytime soon, right? So that's just the reality of what people will expect as an experience. So particularly if you're in enterprise software, that's just something that every enterprise user will actually expect, right? Whether you run whatever application you run to go do your job, everybody expects an AI assistant embedded in that. At the same time, data will keep getting more complex, right? So if you look at the world today, the amount of unstructured data that's being created and the value that you can now extract from imposing structure on inherently unstructured data is just amazing, right? Like right now, initially the world of AI, when we first started, was largely driven by, hey, let's use some structured data to make some time series forecasts and understand what the predicted value of something would be, or do some basic statistics on that. Now the focus has moved on, hey, how do we take unstructured data and really extract value from it at scale? And that unstructured data creation is just exploding like anything. So it's information in documents, and information in text, in every different form, images, videos, LiDAR, all the kind of stuff that's being thrown at you. Now it's actually possible to extract information from those extremely unstructured data sets. So what you need to solve for, in my opinion, as companies, as individuals, setting strategy for these companies is really two things, right? So one, you need to find a way to make users 10 to 100 times more productive in their jobs. This is not a technology problem. This is a business problem, right? You have to go find ways to make them 10 to 100 times more productive. And the second is, how do you design a data strategy that takes into account creating value from inherently unstructured data? And I think that's not going to change, because if you could look at market reports out there, every industry you see, you're going to have more than tabular data in there. And there's going to be tons of growth in that unstructured data, because that's just human beings create unstructured data everywhere they go. And I think there's a lot of value that you can extract from that. So we're at Wharton. So I always like to say, we're the school of value creation. We come up with all these business thinkers and everything. So, I'm here to tell you, like, in order to create billions and trillions of dollars of value with AI, all you should do is build chatbots. And thank you. I'll leave the room now. So obviously that's not the case. It's a joke, right? So the idea is, generative AI is more than just about chatbots. That's what I'm here to tell you, and I'll show you with a few things that we are learning with people who are using and deploying AI solutions in the world, and you'll see for yourself that you got to think way beyond this chatbot sort of mantra that most companies are kind of starting off with. It's great to start with that, but that is the beginning, not the end of where the world is going with generative AI. So a couple of observations of what we've seen, and this is an unreleased report. We do a lot of first-party research from Databricks. So just show of hands, how many people actually know what Databricks is? All right, good. So I'm not going to talk about Databricks. Let's just settle that, right? I'm going to talk about the work people do on Databricks, right? So we are one of the world's largest AI orchestrators. So what that means fundamentally is that companies, when they go run any data processing or they go run any AI development work, they're doing that on our platform. And everything there is logged. So if a company builds an AI model and they bring it to production, we log that. If a company does preparation of data to go train those AI models, we log that. And based on that, we get a lot of insights on what's actually happening. So I'm here to share some of those insights with you. We're actually going to release that in a few days. It's not live, so this is the first look anybody's ever going to get. So live release right here. So 3 observations, and then I'll talk through the data that supports them. One cool thing about generative AI is that not just generative AI is productionizing faster. So what I mean by productionizing faster is people not just testing and experimenting with AI, but actually putting things in production. So actual doing, like for example, if you are running a prediction or a recommendation engine, you're not just experimenting and say, hey, is this working? No, it's more like, hey, is this driving real business value to an actual user? So big difference, a step change. Since the advent of generative AI, what has happened is AI as a whole has gotten accelerated, and we'll share some numbers on that. Second is we see this paradigm, with obviously OpenAI is a fantastic company. They have a huge model that does a lot of cool things, but at the same time, we feel compound AI systems, and we have data to back this up, and we'll explain what that is in a minute, have way more advantages over delivering actual quality solutions into users. And I think we'll talk about how that makes them more productive and actually deliver the value of AI in a minute. And a lot of people, when we first started, the talk was all about data is the new gold. There was all this Economist article, I think, back in the day, a couple of years back. But I think, personally, what we are seeing is governance is really the new gold. And we'll talk about what we mean by governance in simple terms, because governance can sometimes be a dirty word that people have adverse reactions to. So when I said AI is productionizing faster, number one point is we actually look at 12,000 customers use Databricks every day to do their AI and data work, right? So number one, we found year on year, since last year, 2023, and now 2024, basically taking that breadth of data, we have 11 times more models in production. So we looked at how many experiments were logged, so people training models in machine learning models of all types, whether it's generative AI or others, and we looked at how many people actually registered these models to be deployed in production. And there's an 11-time increase just in a year. We've never seen this in our 11 years as a company. Just in a year, there's an 11 times increase in how many models were actually put in production. At the same time, experimentation went from 1 to 1.5x, basically x to 1.5x. Production went from x to 4x. So think about that for a second. It's absolutely crazy the amount of growth we are seeing and how much pull-through we're getting in the world of AI. So this is really exciting for you all, because what this means is companies are really investing in trying to find ways to take these things to production, not just dilly-dally and tinker around with these things. Second is companies are actually getting more efficient in their process of actually putting things in production. So what you're seeing here is the ratio of models registered, so registered being things put in production, and experiments logged. So what it means is for every 10 things I put, or every model I put in production, how many experiments I need to run. So you need to go train, test a bunch of these things. So in industries where you have tons of regulations, say financial services or pharma or healthcare, even manufacturing, certain sectors, you would think of them as testing heavy, right? Like, oh, we'll test intensely before we put something in production. And that's been the case. So previously, the ratios used to be about 30 to 1, right? So for every one model in production, they would have 30 models being stress tested, right? So that's kind of the ratio. Today, just in a matter of a year, it's 10:1, right? So are people testing less? No. I think people are testing the same amount. People are still conscious about regulation and compliance and safety and quality, but people just have an inherent need to put these things in production because now is the time to go realize value from all the investments you've made in data infrastructure. And the companies who have made those investments are actually reaping rewards in heaps. And what are the kind of use cases, right? So questions are, what are people doing with this data, right? Like, so we kind of look at, we classify and categorize some of the applications from this data, and we look at the 6 sectors that we focus on and look at, hey, what are people actually trying to do? So one insight here is, what is old is now new in some ways, right? So a lot of focus was, if you remember in traditional NLP, sort of natural language processing, one of the cool things about generative AI has made that really, really cool again. So if you can see on the left-hand side, you'll see all the libraries and the models that were in that natural language processing domain. We've never seen this before, have just gone up. So what is happening is a lot of these embedding models that are designed to understand human language, people are using them for way beyond what they were doing in terms of creating chatbots. They're actually trying to extract information from text-heavy records. And that's really, really, really cool. So, and there's all sorts of other AI, not just generative AI use cases, whether it's in computer vision, whether it's in geospatial AI, whether it's in time series forecasting, or even graph workloads that you're seeing are just going faster than ever. And you can see, like, even industries like financial services and manufacturing, where you have regulation and safety and all these big, hairy issues, you're just seeing immense growth across all these different kinds of use cases. The second point that I wanted to share with you was this rise of compound AI systems. So what are compound AI systems? Our perspective on the world is that you need more than just a monolithic model to be successful in building AI. And what that means is, fundamentally, I'm sure there's a lot of good research. It's not just in industry. Matej Zaharia is one of our co-founders. So there's research that's being done on what compound AI systems can do. So what does that mean, right? So compound AI, so for people who understand this, the idea is that there are multiple different technologies, agents, components of a system that need to work together to actually deliver value versus just having a monolithic model. So let's take the most dominant pattern, which is retrieval augmented generation. I'm sure all of you know about it, or at least have heard of it. And the idea is, it's kind of a compound AI system. You have a model, you have a data retrieval system. So at minimum, those are 2 components that you need. So if you look at the examples of these now in the world, you would start to see, especially when you're building domain or task-specific applications, you're going to rely on compound AI systems versus just throwing a model naively at the data and expecting it to respond. So if you're going to have better data retrieval systems, you'll have better governance systems, you'll have systems to go fine-tune these models, augment them with specific data sets so that they can perform better for task-specific applications. One of my favorite examples of this is the MedPrompt example, which is out there. So it uses a GPT-4, but then it adds a lot of components to it to be able to deliver valuable responses on particular medical use cases, right? So those are really, and this is out in the wild now. So you'll see more and more of this, and these are just things in the public domain. Companies are building their own all the time in terms of delivering enterprise-specific applications. So, and last point here is that governance is really the new goal, right? What do I mean by governance is, you have the data, you have, the tools to go build models and train them and deploy them. You have to have a way to evaluate these, but all of these tasks need to be logged, governed, have to have a framework to standardize these things because every model is different. So I get that, but at the end of the day, you need to have something that helps you understand the relationships of your own data. And the problem is, most companies thought we'll just take one model, throw it naively on our data, and things will just work. And I'm here to tell you that people have learned the hard way that it just doesn't work very well. It works, but it doesn't work very well. So the difference between working and working very well is recognizing the fact that every organization has its own unique jargon that's specific to their industry, specific to their company, and can take years, if not decades, to actually understand, even for human beings. And I think that's the part that people miss. And if you're a software company, you define your monetary units in a certain way. We have certain ways of assessing our revenue and our consumption and our platform's health. So those are all our terms. If you're a retail, you are buy online, pick up in store. You use these terms that are very specific to that industry. If you're in telco, you're talking about MAC and sessions and quality of service. These are terms that are specific to each industry and maybe even each company. So if you ask OpenAI, one of the critical metrics for our company is what we call DBUs. DBUs are a measure of computation, Databricks units. Nobody would know what DBUs means outside of Databricks, right? So if you throw ChatGPT at the problem, you ask how many DBUs were in Europe in the last quarter, it'll give you an answer something like this. It'll say DBU is Desh Bhagat University or Duluth Business University. So that's obviously not right, because fundamentally you need to take the models that are there in the open source community or the proprietary world, augment them with your understanding of your data, and the path to do that is through better governance. And what governance helps you do is helps you understand the relationships of your data. So if you're trying to understand, hey, even if you build something in text to SQL world, I want to take a query that a customer or a user has and be able to write SQL code for that. You need to understand how that works, and that's super valuable for companies these days, because not everybody needs to learn a query language all the time. But the only way you can do that is if you understand the relationships of your data, understand the uniqueness of your org chart, the uniqueness of the terms in your industry, and how popular these things are, and keep continuously learning and evolving your approach. So I think what I've shown you there is, even though we talked a lot about generative AI, and I hopefully convinced you that generative AI is really, the generative AI challenge is really a data challenge. And I think that's where people the people who understand that, recognize that, and attack the problem for what it is, those are the ones who are going to be very, very successful. So I'll take one example, and then we'll wrap up here. This is a good example for many reasons, because this is a paradigm where people are not going to be learning new coding languages every time they change jobs. So who here has worked around financial data? Does anybody know FactSet? Okay, so you guys work around financial data, perfect. So every time you use a financial tool, Bloomberg or FactSet, it's basically asking questions like, hey, tell me how bonds or equities are performing in the last year, compare them to a certain other period. So in order for you to do that in every financial application, you have to actually write not just a SQL or SQL code, but you actually have to write proprietary code, which is FQL in FactSet's term, which is FactSet query language. And every time you change jobs, or you have to learn a new language, and that's you have to go wrap people up on that. This does not make any sense to any human being, so they actually have to learn this language. So what you would rather want is an experience where, hey, just ask this question in English and have somebody write this query, because it's a very basic question that you're trying to answer. So, what this customer particularly did, FactSet in this particular situation, used a commercial LLM and said, hey, we'll just throw ChatGPT, whatever OpenAI thing on it, And that's great, right? And they got certain results, right? So very quickly, they were like, hey, we got like about 50-50 accuracy, and it takes about 15 seconds for a user to kind of get a response with a decent query, right? Now, obviously, if you were made to wait 15 seconds in the financial world, that's not an effective experience because you're trying to make trading decisions, you're trying to make offers and close transactions. So it's not good enough, right? So from that perspective, we looked at, hey, how can you fine tune the existing model with data sets that you already have? So queries that you've written in the past, people upvoted certain situations, and by building all of this stuff into what we call a compound AI system, having better data retrieval systems, you're able to actually deliver much better performance. So now the company has been able to get to a very high level of accuracy. 85% is very, very good, and has basically cut this down by a third in terms of the latency it takes for users to be able to ask questions and get responses to their data with the SQL code being written for them. So this makes people way more productive versus makes them more productive on day one when they join, because they don't have to learn fact-set query language if they've changed jobs or changed departments, and this is extremely valuable. So this is just one of the examples that I wanted to share. I know we're out of time, but happy to share any order of more. This is an area that is just emerging, and we're only scratching the surface. But hopefully, I've convinced you today that the generative AI challenge is definitely a lot of opportunity, but really what companies and the world at large has to solve for is a data governance challenge in order to really extract value from it. So thank you very much, and I appreciate you sticking out, and enjoy the rest of your day at the conference.